here we are, the very first episode of our Seth Center podcast, a long time in the conceiving, visioning. We should introduce ourselves.
We should. I'm David Selak. I'm the CEO of New Awareness Network.
And I'm Mikhaila Stetler, and I am the president. And here we are together bringing the Seth teachings to a new audience. How did you ever come across the Seth Material? What was your story?
Whoa, well, long ago and far away in a land not too far from here, I was in Portland, Oregon, and I was in a bookstore with my girlfriend, Betsy. And I, as you did at that time, and maybe still now, I was sitting down when I picked a book up, I would sit down and read a chapter to decide, if I liked it. Anyway, I was sitting there on the ground, cross-legged, and this book actually fell into my lap from a high shelf. And I picked it up, and it was the paperback of Seth Speaks, which had a picture of Jane in trance looking up. It's not the greatest photo I've ever seen in my life. But at any rate, I opened it up and I read a few paragraphs and I was blown away. I thought, oh, this is pretty good. So I bought the book and took it home and started reading. And it was like, so that was the start for me. And that would have been in early 80s somewhere. And because I had read widely, philosophy, religion, esoteric this, esoteric that, like everything I could get my hands on, listen to radio, Alan Watts, and anything that was going at the time. And I had basically kind of rejected most of it because I just thought, this doesn't fit for some reason, for whatever reason. And so as I started to read, it's like I was shocked at how good the content was. The problem was this trance stuff, like I just thought this is bullshit, really, like, some lady in New York. And because I'd been kind of trained in a science background, marine biology and some other stuff, forestry, I just thought, really, I don't want to know this. I don't want to know about trance. So I actually had to set to the side my concerns and issues with people going into a trance and looking weird and sounding strange. I just set that to the side for quite some time.
Interesting.
It is.
I have to say, hearing that, like, how many times have we heard something so similar, like a book literally falls off the shelf on their head or something? It's just pretty funny.
Well, I didn't even think about it. I thought, is this a poltergeist? But that was much later. I just thought, oh, well, books fall off shelves all the time. Anyway. And how about you? How did you come across this?
I was at a friend's, I was a weekend away from boarding school with a friend, and we were at friends of hers' house, older friends, and they had this book there. Yeah. And there was like this instant sort of like, what is that book? I have to look at that book. And that's how I got into it. So I was still in high school.
Which book do you recall?
It was either the Seth Material or Seth Speaks. I think they had both books, and I kind of got into both of them right away. And for me...
So you were 17?
Yeah. I wasn't even 18 yet. I was 17, yeah.
Do they let minors read books like that?
Well, they could try to control me, but
so do you remember how you felt as you read this?
I did, totally. Like for me, because I had very unusual, like maybe not unusual, but I haven't met that many people who've had this experience, is that when I was born, I actually retained memory of being born. And I had full on multidimensional awareness for the first few years of my life. This was the dream world. When I closed my eyes, I was very aware this was like a dream world, and I would close my eyes and go back to my real home in inner reality. Yeah. And so I had all of these memories of not being tied to a human identity. Like I remembered a lot of these experiences from early childhood. And then I had shut it down when I was about 4.5, 5 years old. I couldn't hold it anymore in my family. And then when I hit puberty, it started reawakening. And it was like a similar thing. I came across this book on yoga and on meditation, and I started doing all of that. So by the time I was 17, I was already involved. Like I had, got initiated in transcendental meditation. That was like the first formal meditation that I didn't learn on my own, right? And it was very interesting when this happened, when all of that awakening happened. It was also studying ancient Egypt in school, and I started having memories of lifetimes in ancient Egypt. Anyway, so I came across, a friend's house, these books, and just consumed them. And the way it was for me was like, it was like this huge sigh of relief, because it was finally, I came across something that really matched, because all the other things that I was doing, I was still into it. It was a lot of different kinds of spiritual traditions and Carlos Castaneda, but all of them had some vibe of a moralistic, or you'd have some dogma, or this like good and evil, light and dark. Yeah. And the Seth Material was just not like that. And it was so sort of, in a way, like really concrete, like very deep, granular explanation of things.
It's clean.
Yeah.
And yet it's the interesting part for me is I call it, looking at it from a helicopter down. It's written from such a perspective that's so different.
It's so comprehensive.
And there's a part that, of me at least, that goes, it's looking down on reality and explaining it. And it also was doing stuff like, it didn't do, well, maybe you have a reincarnational life or a simultaneous life, or maybe you create your own reality. It was not that. It was like, no, this is how it is. So it wasn't this wishy-washy kind of writing that so often creeps in.
Yeah, like for me, I wanted, give me the real deal. Don't give me frou-frou on it. Don't give me all the symbolism around it. Just give me the straight thing about how the nature of reality is working.
The real deal.
Yeah.
It was like the real deal. And it's, I don't know about for you, but I mean, I've read widely since then too, and looking at other channels and this and that. And it's like, I've kind of stopped that. I mean, I'll still look at stuff, but it is head and shoulders above the rest, in my opinion. It's like the gold standard almost.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say for me, there's always like my inner senses, there'll be like a little bit of a cringe that will happen when something is like an off note or there's a distortion, right? In how it's being expressed. And I really don't ever have that with the Seth Material. It just always creates a resonance of truth. Yeah. And then like the main thing is like, okay, open your inner senses up and test it out. Push on it and see if it holds.
Well, that's right.
Right?
I finally came to that, I don't know, whenever. It didn't matter if I believed it or not. The proof is try it out.
Yeah.
And then like every time I've tried it out, it's not that everything came quickly or instantly. It didn't, not by a stretch, but it's whenever I tested it for myself, it was like, oh yeah, that worked. Holy cow. And that's the proof in the pudding. Or like if you're from Missouri, the show me state, it's like, show me. Don't believe it, try it out.
Yeah. Well, I would say for sure. And then like for me, because all these years of working with it, it's really my own capacity to see through my own stuff. Right? If I'm trying to create or manifest or materialize something and it's not working, the more I grow and learn, and I can look back and I say, well, you were holding, let's say you had things that you weren't recognizing that were going on, or you're having opposing, conflicting systems of belief or attitude. So then you're not going to get the result, which brings us to our next topic. Well, we should talk about how you create your own reality. But I think the point that you made of like, oh, I can't deal with the trance part of this, that it's channeled material. Like
Now I can, by the way.
Now you can, but a lot of people like, oh, is it a ghost? Is it this? Because Jane isn't alive anymore. So for those who don't know, Jane Roberts is the author of the Seth Material, and she and her husband, she had a sort of revelatory.
Tell the story.
Yeah, she had like an enlightenment revelatory experience, and was kind of simultaneous with, they were doing these experiments with a Ouija board, and she started hearing it in her head. Yeah,
because I know
explain it.
I
You
know
love
it even,
that story.
Yeah, I
Tell it.
I
Yeah.
studied that before today. So here's what happened. Jane was a poet, and she has a number of books of poetry. She went into, I think, the dining room to write some poetry. And this is in September of, I think, in 1963. She was writing some poetry, and she drifted off, went into a trance, could feel herself going, and then she felt this like a download of information, and she started automatic writing. And, not thousands of pages, but thousands of characters, and quite a few pages later, she came out of the trance and looked down, and she had multiple pages. And it was even entitled, she had written a title, and it was called The Physical Universe as Idea Construction.
And what a great way to phrase it.
Exactly,
right?
as you know. Yes. And at any rate, and then, as you said, then when she came out of that and they looked at it, it was like, well, where did this come from? And that stimulated them to start to look at writing a book about ESP. So they got a bunch of stuff together. They decided to get a Ouija board. They borrowed that from their landlord, and they were just going to try stuff out, just like what we talked about. You try it out. At any rate, within a few sessions of using the Ouija board, a character came through called Frank Watts, who was a bit of a bumblehead. And a little bit after that, Seth started coming through on the Ouija board. And not long after that, in December of the same year, 63, he actually started, there was a telepathy going on. Seth was able to use Jane's body and speak through her body, and then started dictating through Jane. So she kind of slid over to the side, and she was somewhat aware, but not totally. And Seth would then start to dictate to Robert Butts, her husband.
And, to me, when I think about this, because I've read a bunch of different channeled material over the years, and, thank God Jane was such a good writer, because this is really a collaboration. So it's not as though she just completely, Seth takes over. It's really at another level of consciousness that they're partnering, because it has to come through Jane, and Jane has to formulate some of the language for it. Like Seth is
he uses her language.
Right.
If she doesn't know words, well, he can't use them.
Yeah. So there would be a block of content, as a thought transmission, and then it would go through Jane's linguistic ability.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jane.
So it's like he described it as a bit of a bridge.
Yeah, exactly.
Where they met on this bridge and combined for a period of time.
Right. So always, it's never overtaking her. It's always a mutual collaboration. So, and different people, I guess, do channeling in different ways. And one of the things, again, that I really appreciate about how it was with Jane Roberts and her husband, Robert Butts, is that a lot of people who do channeled material take no responsibility for what comes through at all.
All right.
Right? It's like, I just came through. And Jane was never like that. In fact, almost too much on the other side of taking really feeling responsible for it, and
she had a critical intellect,
not
didn't she?
wanting to lead people down the garden path and all of that, which ended up causing her certain of her own personal difficulties. But they definitely wanted to they didn't publish anything for the first year or two. There were already 500 sessions before.
After a few years, really.
Yeah.
They had over 500 sessions that they had logged, and they did it twice a week for a number of years. Went through psychologists, a psychiatrist, They wanted to make sure this was not just Jane's subconscious, that she had a secondary personality. So they were really quite cautious. But because of the quality, the terms they used, the quality of the material was so good that they thought, oh, this is, it's obviously it's not from Jane.
Right.
Because you read her writing, she doesn't come anywhere close.
No.
It's just so different.
It's not like that,
And anyway, so, and it's been, Seth has said the material, he doesn't claim it's his, by the way. He goes, this is a gift. I'm purely transmitting this.
Yeah, he says he's one of many teachers who come in different ways and forms to help human consciousness grow and evolve and, move past limitation and fulfill the potentiality.
Yeah, I think, it's that there are teachers at all levels. That's fair.
Yeah.
And there are teachers that help us really stretch quite a bit. And I think for me, Seth is one of those, because I think of myself as sometimes bright in certain ways. Other areas, maybe not so much. But it really not just made me think, but really examine, who I was, what did I know, what's the truth of what I know or not. And that stretching has worked wonders just in practical ways, really.
Yeah, definitely.
How about for you?
Well, before I go into that, there is one thing I want to say, because a lot of people are like, well, is Seth a ghost? No, he's not a ghost. How he describes himself is energy, personality, essence. So no longer physical, had many human lifetimes, but not physical. And another thing I want to say is that Seth stated very clearly that he would only, and come through Jane, that to maintain the integrity of the material, he would never, ever channel or come through anybody else. So if anybody is claiming it, is bullshit.
Absolutely.
No.
Well, there have been quite a few that have tried to ride the coattails.
So,
it's like,
yeah.
Anyway.
So Jane and Rob are both deceased, and, but the volume of work, right? Over 4 million words.
Yeah, 4 million words, over 32 books over the course of just over 20 years.
Very prolific. So
4 million words. If you read 2 sessions, I don't want to turn anyone off, but it would probably take you 3 to 4 years.
Depends on how fast you read, but it's not the kind of material that you can just read like a novel, because the way that it was dictated and written, it actually activates your inner senses and makes you...
I got to tell you something.
Like, you can't just read it like that. It actually changes your consciousness just to read it.
Yeah, like, you don't even realize it, but you're changing yourself by reading this stuff. But here's the cool thing is, like, so I'm sitting there reading the book. Oh, this is good stuff. And it's like, and then I read 2 sentences and I go,
wait, what was that?
Wait, what was that? And then I read it a second time.
Like
a little bit more. And I go,
language.
what was that?
Yeah.
I go back a third time. It's like, shit, am I a stupid head or what? Like, I guess I am.
It's not like great big words. It's not like, disestablishment and terrorism or something.
It's not 50-cent words.
It's not.
I know. It's hilarious, isn't it? And people who think they're really smart, like, it's confrontative.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
It is.
It's hilarious, actually.
Yeah. So Seth is not a ghost. What is the other thing
Is it
people
a cult?
ask? Yeah, is it a
Yes.
cult?
Yes, it is.
We have to send the secret image. Secret sign.
No, it's not. Unfortunately, if you're looking for a cult, this is not it.
It's the opposite, right?
It really is.
Because Seth...
Tell me why.
Okay, I'll tell you why. Because if one of the through lines consistently through all the material is the authority and sovereignty of the individual identity and consciousness. He never has set himself up as some guru, follow me, the reverse. It's constantly trust yourself, discover your own abilities, use your own powers, use your own capacity, use your own consciousness. Yeah. Don't put your power outside and look to external authority. Yeah. Constant throughout the material is...
He refers to this often like you create your own reality. You're creating this, not someone else. And it's like, I don't get tired of hearing that, because he actually figures out numerous ways to do that. And something I picked up, I don't know about you, but it's like, there's no dogma.
No dogma. I have allergies to dogma. I'll break out in hives. I can't tell you, like, because, I've had these during that time.
You break out in hives.
Yeah, I'm joking.
Dogma?
I'm joking, but it's like that. I break out in spiritual hives.
Oh, no, I know what you mean.
Right?
Because there's this stuff that goes into your mind. It goes,
and
dogma,
I'm like, well,
dogma.
wait a second. So at that time, right, I was still exploring a lot of different things, right? So I did a lot with like Taoist path, Buddhist path, all these different paths.
Yeah, me too.
And I would go pretty deep into it because if I get into something, I'm like, all right, let me go back to the classic source. Let me get really deep into it. And I would go along and then I would bump into, I'm like, whoops. Now we're hitting dogma. Now we're hitting moralistic judgments. Now we're hitting human distortions. Now we're hitting some kind of patriarchal contamination on spiritual teaching. Yeah. Now we're having hierarchy, right? Now we're imposing on the whole, universe of consciousness, human hierarchical ranking structure. Yeah. And then I'm like, I gotta go.
But
sorry.
Here's the question.
Let me cream the skim off.
Let me ask you a question. So were you ever at a place where you go, because you've got all these religions, you've got all these philosophies. The question I have, and I want your response to this, is I went, if I reject all this stuff, what's left?
Seth.
I know, it kind of that's where it kind of came to. But don't you feel a little bit naked out there? Because if you reject all this stuff and that's all there is, that's an empty space.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely sympathize. I think a lot of people.
Not rejected, but
where you feel like alone and isolated and like you don't have frames of reference. When I was younger, it was a bit more of an issue, but because of what my experiences were like very early life and then just my experiences in my family, I kind of was a bit like already used to feeling a little lonely in all this. And actually, this is how I got connected with the Seth Center and how you and I met was when you and Rick Stack, who, for people who don't know, was the founder of the Seth Center and was a student and friend of Jane and Rob's. Anyway, the two of you were when the pandemic first hit, you put out these webinars, and that's how I got kind of involved with the Seth Center, because I really was feeling lonely then about even my so-called very spiritual, conscious friends, some of whom are well-known teachers. They just were not understanding how the mass reality of a pandemic was being generated, and I was feeling really lonely with it. So that's how
you found your way.
Yeah, that's how you and I got connected, because I would never have been in those in the ongoing like dream class and Seth class that you and Rick were doing,
where I first met
which
you
is
in
how
the
we
dream
met.
class.
Yeah.
That was cool.
So anyway, no cults here. And if you're looking for an external authority trying to tell you what to do and how to live, look elsewhere. You're not going to find it here. But if you want,
it's actually quite refreshing.
Yeah. If you want no dogma, if you want like authority of your own being, integrity of your own being, and really get into like the deep inner granular mechanics of how we're creating our experience of reality individually and collectively, dive into the material.
Well, it's dogma-free since 1963.
That should be our tagline.
I think so. It should
Dogma-free.
at least on a t-shirt. It seems like, I know.
T-shirt and like, can we get a coffee cup that says dogma-free since 1963? Cheers.
Probably.
Cheers to that.
Yeah, cheers.
For deeper perspectives on reality, manifestation, consciousness, and personal and collective evolution, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube at Seth Center. We share quotes, clips, insights, and fresh angles on all the big questions, all rooted in the Seth Material and designed to support your growth from the inside out.
All right, so Dave, we have a question that we need to answer.
Okay.
What does it mean, that famous Seth saying, you create your own reality, which basically was like the OG kind of launching the new age or being in the first wave?
Yeah, so what does it mean? So Seth goes into great detail about it, and you start to reflect on it. But what he means is that in this waking reality, everything that is and everything that happens, you create and co-create that reality, for good or for bad. And so all the events, your body, your health, your wealth, your misfortunes, we create all of that. And then the question obviously goes, yeah, well, how do I do that? Isn't everything just like a giant accident? So Seth goes into, and I'll keep this relatively short, and he goes into, well, you create reality through your beliefs, emotions, and imagination. So what's that? So what's a belief? So a belief is like, it's a thought or thoughts that become hardened, right? So a thought like, I'll use a kind of an unfortunate one. Oh, everything happens to me. All bad stuff happens to me. And you have that thought over and over. And there's what he calls an electromagnetic reality to that thought, right? So it actually has some power. It's a small power, but done over and over and over again, you start to create that reality of everything happens to me. And of course, then you draw that unfortunate stuff into your life. And then conversely, I'm a lucky person. And I actually am, because like I've won all the school gift baskets.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I
it's
love
like
that.
it got embarrassing after a while. It's like, because I think of myself as really lucky. And I am. It's kind of sick, really. But anyway,
I'm so glad
we used to give the baskets away. Yeah,
I get to be under the luck umbrella with Dave.
Look, I don't do the lottery. That's another story, and that's a whole different thing. But so in a small scale, and here's a tiny example. So let's say you're at an event or a gathering. A bunch of people standing up, they're drinking something, whatever. You see someone across, it might be the opposite sex, or it might be someone that you want to talk to, and you look at them. You put your attention on them. And it's like, all of a sudden, they turn around. And it's like, what happened there? And you notice that, so of course you look away, right? Because you don't want to.
Or you're just brazen and you look back
and
you
wink.
Wink.
You look back and wink. So what's happening there is something that's invisible. A thought has gone out, and maybe some with an emotion, and if you're brave, with some imagination, and they look back because they can detect it. So I'm just trying to demonstrate that something that is seemingly invisible actually has an effect.
Yeah, well, radio waves are invisible.
Yeah, so is the wind.
Right? All of that. So another, to go even deeper into this is basically how Seth kind of ultimately explains this is that physical reality is sort of a kind of like a holographic universe. It's projected from the inside out. Everything comes from the inside out. And our thoughts, our emotions, our imagination, all of that has an electromagnetic reality. And we even can measure at least, brainwave patterns, thoughts are happening. So it's not that far of a stretch. So what he talks about is this, kind of the whole universe, all the dimensions of existence. There are these electromagnetic energy units. And so your thoughts are shaping and concentrating them. They're building them up to a pitch of intensity. And then emotion is like the pure vitality of all existence. So that's the thing once it...
Absolutely.
You get thoughts that are generating emotions. You get beliefs that are generating emotions. That's the way that it happens. So the thought is the structure, the emotion is the juice inside it, right? And then when it reaches enough concentration, then it emerges as either an event or an object or an experience in physical reality.
That's right.
So what a lot of people, they'll go into a phrase of, first of all, they'll go to the most extreme. Well, what about, a baby born with cancer or something, or wars or things like that, the most extreme things, or, you get into a car accident, or why do good things happen to bad people? And not to in any way minimize or gloss over the pain and suffering. But when you get further and further back, you have to get further upstream, like you were talking about, that like view from on high, you'll see that we have, from a soul level, different reasons of why we might set something up or why we might participate in something.
Yeah.
But for like,
I'd like to talk about those things, but not
right now.
Not right now,
We can
because
talk
they're
about them later.
complex and
They are.
they need a lot of detail that's provided.
Well, let's do that in another episode.
So
back to creating your own reality is that from the inside out, from the energy of your inner psyche, the thought, emotion, imagination, and then also will and desire, like together, is kind of creating the inner sort of substrate of what gets manifested once it reaches a certain pitch of intensity.
Yeah, whether it's a body or an event. I want to add to what you said, which was great, and it's the emotion, if a thought or a belief powered by the emotion.
That's the gas.
And imagination.
Yeah.
Seth said, very paraphrased, it's more than the energy taken to send a rocket to the moon.
Right.
So, and each of us has that.
Right.
Which is really cool.
Right. So,
And here's the weird thing, we already do it.
well, we do it all the time. It's just, are we doing it with intention and awareness and mastery? Or are we doing it haphazardly under the effect of all of these really limiting
Well,
conditions
we want to learn to
and
do
thought
it consciously,
forms.
right?
Yeah, exactly. And then when you do this, you actually have to now confront. If you want to get good at this, if you want to get really good at creating a reality that you desire, then you've got to see through your own belief structures and conditioning, and also the ones in the society you grew up in.
Give me an example from your life. Come on.
Oh gosh. All right. Let me think of a good one. Okay. Around safety, about being safe in the world. And maybe 15 years ago, it would not have felt safe to me to be on camera and be visible and having, thousands of people I don't know seeing me, maybe judging me, like, am I being good enough? Right?
Maybe.
Right? Like, who knows what it is? So I had to really look at, okay, what is the source of my safety? Why do I feel that it's not safe to be too big and bright and shiny or visible? Like, where is that coming from? And is this actually true? Like, even if it was the experience in the family, I'm not a dependent child in my family anymore, right? I'm a big grown-up woman. my well-being is not dependent on them, like, for survival.
That's a great example.
Right? So I actually had to do...
So you've left fear somewhere.
Well,
or got rid of
at least a bunch of them.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, quite a bunch of them. So I had to really see and challenge, like, is this actual fact about reality, or is this a belief system? Like, is this true for all people in all times and places? Otherwise, it's not a fact about reality.
Yeah.
Right? Then it's a belief. So I had to really deconstruct that so that I could get over it.
So did you do that quite consciously at the time?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I took it on.
See, I remember that too. Mine's a little bit different, but safety and living in a safe universe, which I know we'll be talking about at another point.
Another episode, yeah.
But I realized as I changed my view about living in a safe universe that my energy went up, and the energy that I was expending trying to stay safe went down. And I could move more freely in the world.
Well, and, along with this one about being safe to be visible, which is also basically being safe to really be yourself, express yourself, I found that the more permission I gave myself to just be who I was, and less afraid of, like, how it looked, or other people's judgments or criticism or anything like that, or projections. That was another thing, getting their projections. Then I got a lot less of that from people. And in fact, people around me experienced a lot more freedom to be themselves.
Yeah, I noticed that
as
too.
well, right? Because, hey, there's a lot of space here. Just be yourself. It's okay, right? It's safe.
It sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? It's not. Well, it is and it isn't. But the path to get there is actually easier than I thought.
It is ultimately simple, and it does take some courage and some commitment to look within and see, because it's like a.
So you live in like a different world now, don't you?
I do. Like what I was going to say is, like, there's two sides to this. Is one, when you recognize this, then you have like freedom and power.
Oh yeah.
On the other hand, you have more responsibility, so you can't be a helpless victim anymore.
Yeah.
So
Well, and you can also
right?
say
That's
and do.
kind of confronting.
You can also say and do stuff that you would have always. I'm saying you. But one
would.
Anyway.
I will. I'm pretty bold and brazen.
I've loosened the reins on myself.
Yeah.
And I allow myself to say mostly what I think, not everything. Like, come on, really. But you loosen up. You can play with people more in a good way, and it creates, dare I say it, almost a better world, because people respond to that, don't you think?
100,000%. So if you're not feeling, if you don't have all this self-consciousness, because that was the thing, like my son would always say, like, you're kind of being like your mother on camera. What are you doing? So it wasn't just like natural and authentic, right? Because I had all of these defense mechanisms because it wasn't safe.
Yeah.
Right. So so that's one example. I'll give you another really concrete example of having really taken this on. Is where I live, there's like a series of break-ins and things, and people were being like very cautious and careful and putting it out in the, newsletter for the homeowners association. And I kept like, accidentally my garage door was left open, or I would come downstairs, my front door, not only was it unlocked, it wasn't even fully shut.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right. And 2 doors down, they're being burglarized.
Yeah.
But I don't have that. I am not a energetic, telepathic frequency match, because it is not in me. I don't have a thought of that I'm not safe where I live.
So are you saying, isn't it true?
Is it true?
Isn't it? So you're saying that things like robberies, break-ins, muggings, that we attract those things to ourselves? How would you put it? How would you describe
How I would
that?
put it is that how your beliefs about yourself, about your safety, your power, about is the world safe? Like, is it dog eat dog? Is it dangerous world? Or, everybody out to get you, or whatever that. Like, it's not always this very, 2 + 2 = 4. Sometimes, it's a little bit more complex, but the overall, let's say, tone of your energy, the energy of your thought, emotion, imagination is a match for whatever it is for the person. I mean, why would you need to like rob somebody? Like, let's put it this way, if you felt that you had the power to create what you wanted, and that you lived in a safe universe. And
No, what I mean is...
But I'm saying that match, so there's something in that person is a match to your fears. You're both actually
so they
have the
attract
same...
each other.
Yes.
It's not a random event.
It's not
Really?
random.
So there is no randomness?
Sorry, no accidents.
There are no accidents.
Well, look at it.
I was baiting you, as you know.
Well, either this is how the nature of reality is and how we create individually and collectively our experience, or it's not. It can't be, well, if it's a Tuesday and the moon is full, this is how it works. But if it's a Wednesday, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. No, This is how reality works.
I've got to tell this story. It's kind of...
All right, tell a story.
So after I read, some of the books, and I'm still in my early 20s, working at an outdoor center with all these wilderness people. Anyway, I became known as the person who always said there are no accidents. And it's like, I used to piss people off, but I didn't care that much at that point. And I noticed that beyond the realm of probability, I would like run into people, like, and it's like, and so that hit me because I realized that the probability of those events, me running into these people in different places,
statistically
is impossible.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
especially on like a daily basis. And it kind of cooked me.
So where's that being organized? How is that
Yeah,
being
exactly.
assembled, sir?
Exactly.
Like when we have these synchronicities,
Yeah.
you think of the friend and then they call. What's actually
know.
happening?
You want me to tell you?
Yes, answer, please,
No,
sir.
No, I will. I will tell you. I will tell you. So
For the
look,
folks at home, how is
the
that
folks-
happening?
it's a secret. No, it's not.
You have to be part of the cult.
Yeah, join the cult. Come on. No, so telepathy happens. It's constant between all people, between animals, plants, the weather, the earth, the cosmos. However, we're not aware of it because if we were totally aware of all the telepathic messages that were flying around, you'd be overwhelmed. It'd be like two tsunamis hitting you at once. So you can't be aware, but you can sometimes become aware of telepathic messages. So if you sent me a message like, hey, Dave, call me, it's like, I might get it, and I'm thinking, I wonder what Mikhaila's up to. And then I go, yeah. Then I forget about it. And then 5 minutes later, it's like, what's going on with Mikhaila? And that way, it's like, and I notice, and you can learn to notice, it's like when there's repetitive impulses like that.
Right, those
then
little
nudges.
nudges.
Then I think, okay, shit, I'll give her a call.
And then like, Dave,
And
I was
then
just
I was
thinking of
just-
you.
I know. Yeah, so, and it happens that way, like
all
the time.
All right, so if you don't think that your thoughts have a reality, like how many times are you driving down the highway and you know somebody's about to make a bonehead move? Like you just know they're going to cut out of that lane. Like you know it. How do you know? Telepathy. Like if we didn't have telepathy operating, the amount of traffic accidents would be
It's a safer
astronomical.
universe because of telepathy, actually. It's true.
That is true.
Yeah, or you turn off, you book a plane to go somewhere, and, it's hard to get to the airport, babysitter doesn't show up, the dog's biting, pooping all over the floor. And so you don't get to the airport on time. And then guess what happens?
Plane crashed.
Or, something else.
Or something.
Some bad thing.
Something,
The hijackers come by and you wonder, why didn't I get to the airport? Well, it's like you tuned into probable events through telepathic means, and
that one didn't
you
match
made
for you.
it didn't match. I don't want to be part of that drama.
No, I'm not
And
doing
so
that
you
one.
don't. Yeah.
That one I say no to.
Me too.
Not today.
Yeah, it's like, so I got to tell you, funny, it's like, so in my family, there's this thing, it's like, drive safely, be careful, all this stuff. So in my family, we do the opposite now. It's like, drive dangerously, fly unsafely.
Oh,
and it's just a joke because we're trying to remind each other, it's like, it's a safe universe out there.
Right.
It's like, not this constant reminder of it's unsafe. What would you prefer?
Yeah. That my reality is safe and I can do and be who and what I am, and that everybody's going to be pretty much okay with it. So we had a question about where did all these beliefs come from? So as a, infant, young, dependent child, you've got to get with the program of your family. That you have to take on the family beliefs, the cultural beliefs, as you're orienting to the reality of the time and culture that you're living in. So we have a number of, besides just your family of origin, right? We have these, what Seth calls the official line of consciousness. We have a group of really unfortunate belief systems and views of reality that are pretty much permeate the whole planet, that are really limiting. So you're kind of in, when you take this on, you've got to be willing to liberate yourself from any kind of conditioned programming that does not serve you and is not ultimately true.
Yeah. So, look, we've all been given beliefs and ideas from our parents, from our culture. And
School, religion,
and school,
all
that.
of that.
And some are good, some maybe not so great. And our thoughts follow these beliefs, right? So no one forces you to think in a particular way. No one forces you to make thoughts. So if you're creating situations where you don't like it, that's an area where we should be looking at our beliefs and ideas. And I had big time example of that in my beliefs about money, earning money, creating wealth, believing in myself. And I had some really pretty not so hot, so pretty shoddy ideas and beliefs in that area. And but I did not recognize them, that's what was being created was my beliefs. But then I did. And it's like, oh, I can change those ideas, those beliefs, those thoughts, and then change my reality. And that was the first big thing that I did. So it's easy to change beliefs, ideas. You can change your thoughts. It's very practical. It's not hard. It's not buried deep in the subconscious.
No, you don't have to go, oh, it's from a past life or from my childhood. Yeah. No, it's like right here, right now. And there's another thing. Seth always says the point of power is in the present moment. You can always make a new choice now. Now, what I would recommend, now we can go into a number of different methods of how to discover what you're really holding in your consciousness and how to change it, because there are many different processes and practices. What I would recommend for the reader at home or the listener at home is to read The Nature of Personal Reality, because that really, Seth goes very deep into all of these things into that book. So you can do different writing processes to discover your beliefs. There's different you
can have a conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
What do I think and believe about this?
And then once you once you discover what they are, then how do you change them, right? So again, there's a number of different angles that you can come in on to transform, to change them. So you can use self-suggestion, you can use dreams, you can do the opposite emotion, you can do imagination exercises. There are a lot of different processes that you can do. So, because this goes into a lot of people who are into, say, law of attraction or positive affirmations, and they're using all these affirmations, but it's not working. Why isn't it working? Well, because...
Can I tell you?
Yes, tell us. Tell the people at home,
oh, wise
Dave.
sage.
Oh, why isn't it working? I tried using all those.
I can tell you from experience why it's not working.
Yeah.
So, so often, and everyone listening or watching, have you ever had opposing ideas about the same thing? Like believing one thing on one day and holding the opposing view.
Or you want something, but you're afraid to have it.
Yeah. Or oh, I look pretty good today. And then you go, an hour later, I don't look that good today. So it's like you got two ideas. This is very low level. But you have two ideas. And so what happens is these beliefs or ideas or these thoughts, they oppose each other and they kind of cancel each other out. Or short circuit. They short circuit. They short circuit. They short circuit what's going on.
Yeah.
So you can negate something. Here's a good example. It's really a fascinating one too, I think. So there's people they build up businesses, they attract wealth, they make lots of money, and then what happens?
They lose it all.
They lose it all.
Why do they lose it all?
In spectacular fashion, usually. And then what do they do?
They'll do it again.
Exactly. They do it again. And then guess what happens?
They lose it again.
Absolutely. And it's so in my opinion, and I'm pretty sure this is pretty accurate, it's they have opposing beliefs that they can make money, they can make wealth, they can build business, blah, 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 all that stuff. But they must have an opposing belief such as what would you think?
Well, I'll lose all my friends, or they'll only want me for my money, or I won't have love anymore, or they won't be able to relate to me.
I'm not worthy, or I'm guilty
I'm not
about
worthy.
something,
Yeah,
so
I don't deserve it. Yeah, that's a big one. Same thing with love relationships. I'm sure a lot of people who might be listening, let's say you see it in a friend, because it's easier to see it in somebody else. They keep going after the same exact kind of person, and it keeps not working out. Like, what do you not see about this pattern? You want love, but you keep creating or you keep attracting someone who is not able to create the kind of relationship you want, or you keep trying to work out what it was, with your parents or your family.
Karmic?
Karmic. That's a whole nother topic.
Do you want to save that one?
I think we need to save karma for
simultaneous selves.
Yeah, and the idea of punishment. That is not the nature. No, it is not karma. It has to do with what you are actually believing about yourself, your worthiness, your lovability, what's possible for you, what is possible for relationships. If you've never seen a healthy relationship in your life,
about people,
you don't have
I got to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Since we're on this.
All right.
So how about people that aren't able to attract anyone? What's going on, do you think?
Well,
Is that
of course,
complicated
it's not that it's complicated, but it's definitely individual. I wouldn't make a general statement. So what
Typically.
if you have maybe okay, I'm going to lose myself in the relationship. I can't, if I'm in relationship, then I'm going to be dominated by the other person. I'll lose myself, or I'm not worthy, or I'm not lovable. Or if they find out who I really am, nobody would actually love me. Right.
So there's an opposing belief.
Yeah. Right. So there could be a number of them, or,
I reckon we should do a podcast on relationships, love, sex, all that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we should.
Was that the naked one where we come? There was a naked class in Elmira, New York. We were talking about classes being held.
Yeah,
anyway,
Jane used to hold these small.
not a bunch of naked ones. It was one.
Well, they did one time to challenge people's belief systems about their bodies. So if you reject your own body, you're not going to think anybody else would want to make love to it.
Kind of true. Well, I don't know.
Wait, did we make Dave speechless?
I don't know what to say. Yes, somewhat speechless.
All right, well, maybe we could wrap this episode up. So we kind of introduced ourselves a little bit of who we are, and we can share more in future episodes.
Where do you live, by the way?
I'm not telling that.
No, what part of the...
I live in Southern California.
Okay.
And where do you live, for the folks at home?
I live in Australia.
Down under.
G'day.
G'day, mate.
Good on you. Good on you.
Good on you. So we talked about who is Seth, kind of how it came about. We talked about how we create our own realities. We talked about how do you change belief systems, or at least a little bit about that, which we can do more. And again, whatever we could say, it's not going to be as good as going to the source material itself.
Yeah. If you've never read just to chime in with you, it's if you haven't started to read the materials, it's best read in the order of publication. So kind of how that goes is the Seth Material, or you could read Seth Speaks, and then follow that into the Nature of Personal Reality. And then there's a whole bunch of others. But that's the place to start.
Start there. Yeah, that would be the best place to start. We started there, and we didn't go wrong.
Not too far.
Not with that, anyway. Not in that regard.
So are you still,
Always.
have you perfected yourself in your
you would
life
think,
and all
aren't
that?
aren't I fully enlightened by now? I walk on water. I levitate anywhere I want to go. Walls have no meaning for me.
I want to see that.
That's just an energy structure. I can go right through that.
We're going to go floating off. Go floating off now. No.
In my experience is, first of all, the nature of beingness and existence is constant, unfolding, creative development, evolution, more potential, more possibility. So it ongoing. And it's not like we're trying to get to some destination or that there's something wrong. It's the natural creative growth process. Because you started out not being able to walk, there wasn't anything wrong with that. Because you were in grade school, but then you went to high school, was there anything wrong in grade school? No, you're just growing. So there's always more to learn and more to kind of free yourself from, because we live in a world that has a lot of limitation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I realize it's like, there's never going to be an end to it. I can be lazy sometimes, but most of the time I need to keep doing some stuff to keep growing and developing. So, the fun never ends. And I just like to say, thanks for watching and listening. It's been a real joy. And we hope to see you again.
Indeed. Come have fun with us, because we actually do have a lot of fun together.
We kind of do.
We do. Yeah, so this, if you want like super serious spiritual growth and development and have to be holy and wear white or wear whatever color and never think a bad thought, seek elsewhere.
Sounds good. Okay.